Who's been hurt? Let's talk about your hurt. In this series of emotional leadership, we're talking about all the major negative emotions, and we are on to number 4. And number 4, fabulous number 4, is our friend hurt, one of our most important feedback tools. If you haven't seen the introduction to this series and got a grasp on what negative emotions are, then please do go watch part 1. If you are up to speed, let's get straight, deep dive down into our friend hurt. Hurt as a feedback mechanism highlights that an expectation has not been met. So very similar to anger in the way that we process and respond. Remember, we're looking for responses, not reactions or repressions, if we want to effectively move through our emotional state and take actions consistent with our desired results. So anger, if you remember, was about a rule or a boundary being crossed. Okay, so there's a line. So we've made up some sort of line in our mind, or it's a cultural line, or it's an accepted social line, or it's a law, or it's a personal feeling. We have this line, and if you cross that line, we'll experience anger. Well, hurt is very similar in that it's about expectations, and expectations are a different type of line. So with hurt, we have a line that, again, might be a social construct, it might be personal, it might be something that you made up when you were a little kid and you didn't really, realize that you were still carrying around and you still expected this of people, but there's a line, okay? And instead of the line being crossed, like with anger, with expectation, the line doesn't get met. People fall short. People or ourselves fall short. All right, so classic expressions of hurt: disappointment, okay? Heartbreak. Heartbreak is mingled with sadness as well. It's definitely a combo emotion. But heartbreak, disappointment, being wounded, being in, just the general stuff of I'm in pain, I've been hurt. Okay, so if you remember back to how we process anger, the first step is we have to distinguish what is the rule or boundary. So with hurt, exactly the same. We distinguish what is the expectation that I had. Okay, now when you do this, when you distinguish the expectation, if the expectation is impractical, doesn't apply in this context, or is a bit irrational, then straight away the emotion will have been processed. It will disappear. This is the cool part about it. Just like with the rule or boundary with anger, if you realize, hang on, I have this rule that everyone should be nice to each other. Maybe that's left over from when I was about 5 and it doesn't apply to now because people are going to do whatever people want, then the anger goes away. So we want to look first of all at the expectation and go, is it appropriate in this context? Does the other person know that I have this expectation? Okay, have they ever agreed to it? Or is this just something I keep in the privacy of my own mind and occasionally might want to share with people what my expectations are of them? So relationships are fraught with hurt, okay? Because wherever you have human beings, you have expectation and machines, and we are cruising around, projecting all our expectations onto each other, usually not communicating them, and then other people are just letting us down all the time. All right, so we look at, first of all, do people know about it? Are they aware? Did they agree to do it? If not, most of the intensity of that emotion should dissipate by doing those investigations. Now, if they are realistic, if they're appropriate, if people did agree to them, if they're important to you, then you have to go to this next layer of processing hurt. And it's where you look at, how am I reinforcing this expectation with people? So if someone has got awareness of the expectation, but they knowingly aren't meeting that expectation, then it's a practical discussion around, okay, that has an effect on me ongoingly. Is it appropriate that we rely on each other in this dynamic because it's setting me up for a bunch of hurt? So this is, this relies on a lot of self-empowerment and a lot of self-value, going, I've got to be willing for people to say, actually, No, I'm not ever going to meet that expectation. All right, now in a professional context, and when we're talking about leading staff, this is the correction land. This is saying we have an expectation. You're aware of the expectation. Part of your engagement and employment is to meet that expectation. Are you missing some skills or resources that will enable you to meet that expectation, or is it simply an unwillingness? And so that's called correction, where you go, right, if it's an unwillingness, you give a correction, which is in terms of appropriate consequences. So for some people that's, okay, well, please, within a couple of weeks, I need to see you doing that behavior correctly, meeting that expectation. If not, then this skill set isn't appropriate for you, the tasks and expectations and duties aren't appropriate for you, and we have a discussion about if it's appropriate for you to be here in this capacity. So it's about correction, okay? And very similarly with anger, where you talk about to the person, well, this is a rule or boundary I have. If you can't honour that rule or boundary, then it's probably not safe for us to interact over and over again. I'm just putting myself in the same position again, over and over again. So we deal with the practicality of the expectation. If the expectation is valid, especially in a work context, we go, right, so are there skills missing? Is there something to do with this person's attitude or mindset that a little bit of leadership could correct and get into the right groove such that they desire to meet the expectation? If you get to the point where you discover that, no, there is fundamentally no alignment and the person does not wish to meet your expectations, you are having a conversation about suitability, okay? And you want to be doing that. You want to be sending that person off to be doing duties and tasks they're passionate about, they're going to enjoy, and you want to be attracting the right people who are passionate about those. Clarity on your expectations going into any relationship are your complete battle plan. We need to be self-aware enough as leaders to know what our expectations are before people accidentally fall over in front of us and us then go, oh, actually, that's right, I did expect this of you. So that forethought, that leadership, that self-leadership to go, hang on, what are my intentions here? What are my expectations here? Can I articulate them? A really great way of identifying what expectations are for you is asking yourself some questions around, if this person was great at everything but failed to do one thing in this role, that would make them completely unsuitable. What is that thing that if they did everything right except for one thing, what could I not actually tolerate? What could I not bear? What would make them unsuitable? So that's a great way of uncovering hidden expectations to prepare yourself for when you engage someone new. Now, if you are just a disappointment machine, if you hold really, really high standards for yourselves and others that are consistently not met, it means you're usually quite a driven person, okay? You might be a perfectionist. That's cool. It's totally fine. What you want to be aware of is if you're setting yourself up for continually negative emotional states, which becomes just a negative feedback loop that you're in all the time. If you've got very high expectations on yourself and you are a high performer, high fives to you, you are on fire. You'll have high expectations, you'll meet and exceed them, high expectations, meet and exceed them, and you'll be on a really positive upward spiral. The trap, though, for people who are high expectation, high performance, is that's just their world. That's how things are. And they'll project all of that onto the people that they work with. And not everybody else is as internally driven as you are. And not everybody else works to the same, perhaps moral framework, ethical framework, work ethic or intensity or level of care factor. So if you have that going on with you, if you're dealing with that, you're always disappointed by people, and it's not just, one person, it's a constant theme throughout this. You need to start to re-examine this projection that you're doing. And that's what a coach does. A coach has you examine where you're projecting everything, where you're not actually being accountable to providing leadership, you're just falling into judgment, and how to restructure your framework for communicating expectations, providing correction and praise when it's required with staff as a constant leadership dynamic. Provide praise, correction, praise, correction, praise, correction, and help you break through whatever negative emotional charges from the past have you be so driven and so projecting onto other people. There's nothing wrong with being driven. You just want to make sure that it's sustainable, and it's coming from motivations of desire versus desperation or avoidance of past pain. So, like I said, that's what a coach does. That's what I do. I work primarily on leadership psychology, the strategy of your business, and the structures that you need in place to scale intelligently, to have the kind of business that suits you, your value system, and your mission in life, what you're up to in the world. Please do book a call with me. If you're still dealing with these concepts and grappling and you want more, you could also download my Leadership Focus audio and video series. It's a great way to get deeper and deeper into these concepts and work out if you're ready to go to the next level, to get that kind of freedom in your leadership, to get the control you want around this machine called your business. If you feel like you've been carrying your business and carrying your people, it's definitely time to talk to me. My name's Emily Diamond, and I really look forward to speaking with you.